My name is Martin Matter with the Witness to War Foundation. It's October 12, 2019, and we're in Branson, Missouri. Sitting with Mr. John Flanagan, Flanagan, who served in the Vietnam War in the United States Army. He's a member of Bravo Troop, 1st of the Ninth Cavalry. How are you doing today, John?
I'm just doing absolutely great.
Well, it's very nice to be here with you this afternoon. Thanks for joining me.
Okay.
My first question is, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York.
Did you grow up there as well?
Yes, I grew up there. I was born on 40th Street in Brooklyn, and I stayed there until I got drafted in the Army in 1966.
Well, tell me about growing up. What was your family like?
Uh, 5 children. I was the youngest. The brother right ahead of me, 2 years older than me, died when he was 3. So we grew up in a family of 4. My mother didn't work. My father was a Parks Department employee. He was a laborer in the Parks Department. We lived in a house that my grandmother owned. She was a widow, and she lived up on the top floor, and we had the ground floor and the middle floor. Went to the center of our life, I guess, was the church, St. Michael's. We hung out there a lot. Got to know I was an altar boy from the time I was in the 3rd grade all the way through. Some of the classmates will say that I didn't really go to school that often because it was a big church. They had a lot of funerals during the week, and you need altar boys, and I was always there. So it was pretty good. Had a priest friend there, Robert Rodriguez. He came into the parish, and it was interesting because the parish was really Italian and Irish, and a transitionary immigrant kind of a neighborhood and culture, but a big influx of Puerto Ricans was coming in at that time. You know, West Side Story, all of that kind of stuff. So when Rod came in, it was a surprise. And this guy was just a dynamite priest, dynamite person. Really liked the kids, took us under his wing, a few of us. We sort of formed the little circle of friends with him, and he took us out to shows and to dinners and taught of the better things in life, actually. And it was really a super thing. Graduated from the elementary school there, went to a parochial diocesan high school for a year and a half. I enjoyed the first year, but I didn't want to go back. My parents said, "You're going back." I said, "Okay, we'll play your game." So when I went back as a sophomore, I did nothing in school because, you know, if you don't make grade, they kick you out. I got my way. And interestingly enough, my mom took me to John Jay High School, and we're in the admissions office, and my best friend, Tommy Jennings, who also, he had a parallel life in elementary school, he and his mother were there. He just came out of St. John's Prep. So we had the next 4 years together, and it was a lot of fun. So that's how I grew up. And then
Have there been a military history in your family at all?
No, not at all. Not from my immediate family. Now I had uncles that were in there. Most of the uncles were in the Navy, and they told me, you know, if you're gonna go into the service, go in the Navy because you always have a fresh bed and, you know, fresh food and stuff like that. I had an uncle. My Uncle Marty was a tail gunner, Flying Fortress, and he got shot down, but the whole crew made it out. And that's about it. I mean, but my dad wasn't, and a couple of the other uncles were.
Had you ever considered joining the service growing up, or did you have some other ambitions?
I guess I always looked at it like maybe something's going to happen on there, but not really. Really didn't know what I wanted to do. And the guys I was hanging around with, we all didn't know what we were going to do. And you get to the certain point after graduation from high school and stuff. I was working in a bank as a teller. Tommy was over with Brooks Brothers in Manhattan. So the four of us started to go around and check with the recruiters. And I didn't trust recruiters. You know, I heard all of the stories and all of the promises, and it's like, nah, that's not really cool. I liked the Air Force because I looked good in blue, you know, and I thought that was like a cool life. But all of the other services were 4 years. Had to join us 4 years. Now I know what 4 years is like. I just came out of high school. Okay, so I know 4.5 years. But I didn't want to sign up for the 4 years. Tommy and Jimmy went into the Air Force for 4 years. Jimmy McKee went into the Marine Corps for 4 years. And I found out that you could volunteer for the draft. Nobody wanted us to hang around until you're 22 or 23 and then get drafted. You know, it just didn't make any sense to me. It just, you know, by that time I'd probably be married, and it didn't make sense.
Around what year was this?
This is 1966 is when I came in. So in 65, like December 65 or so, we all signed up to the different ways. And I volunteered for the draft. And I was working at the bank, the National City Bank on Montague Street. They had just announced that I was selected to be the chief clerk, or the head teller, rather. The head teller in the branch at Montague Street. I said, this is really great. I was going to be the youngest head teller in the Citibank chain. And my mother called me about 10 o'clock, and she said, John, there's a letter here. And I said, feel it. Does it feel like there's something inside? She says, yeah. I said, open it up. Is it a token? Yeah, it's a token. And it was the invitation from, you know, dear John, your friends and relatives had decided to invite you to defend our country, be at their place at 0600 hours on Thursday, whatever. So that's where it was. I told the manager that, you know, I'm going to be going. Thanks a lot. And he said, well, we'll hold the job and that. And that's the way I started my career.
So the Vietnam War, we had some involvement over there around that time. But did you know anything or think anything about Vietnam when you got your draft notice?
Well, I knew, everybody knew, you know, the war was going on. I mean, I had a number of the guys who were working in the bank with me. They joined the reserves or the National Guard so they could stay home, try to, you know, stay away from Vietnam. I was not opposed to it at all. It's like, okay, that's fine, I'll go. And now, I mean, you're 19 years old, what the heck? So it didn't really bother me.
This is the great adventure. And
yeah.
how many times have you been off the island?
Oh, I've been off, you know, Brooklyn, Manhattan. I've been up into Boston, stuff like that. My sister lived up there. So I mean, I've been, you know, to Jersey and stuff, but not any great distances.
Out of the New England, New York area, that must have been.
Yeah, it was sort of interesting, you know, because I got drafted on 3 February '66, and I was drafted into South Carolina, Fort Jackson. So a kid from New York in February, it's cold. But wait a minute, this is South Carolina, so it's got to be warm. So, you know, you pack your stuff, you go down there. Well, I mean, I was dressed, maybe I had a light jacket, you know, windbreaker with me as I went down there, and froze my ass off. We got down there, man, it was cold. We took the train, came out of Whitehall. Well, the interesting thing about getting into the Army was they also was drafting for the Marine Corps, and I didn't know that. So I'm standing in line in my shorts, socks, a little bag around my neck with, you know, my watch and wallet inside there. And all of a sudden these two Marines come up and they start counting off. 1, 2, 3. They came to number 12, the guy right in front of me, and they said, okay, you 12, take 2 steps forward. They took 2 steps forward. Congratulations, you're now in the United States Marine Corps. 13's my lucky number. 13's my lucky number. I am not going to go in the Marine Corps, not at all. So anyway, we got finished all of the paperwork and stuff, and we went to the train station, and got on a train to South Carolina. It was we changed trains in Washington D.C. to a sleeper car, Pullman sleepers. While we were on the station, there was a luggage cart, one of the big old train luggage carts, and on it was a flag-draped casket. And it's like, is that going to be me? And it's just, wow. And then you get in the Pullman car and you get in the sleeper, and I had the top bunk. Well, there's only that much room, about the same amount as a casket. And I'm in there going to the Army, and it's like, holy crap. Wow, what's going on? Anyway, get at the reception station. Sergeant screaming at me. I think they were all black. They all came from the South. They had terrible English, and they cursed a lot and called you names. And it was just wild. And then you had to take all your tests there. Well, it was cold, and they had a tent city set up, GP mediums with fires going inside them. And I was lucky because I ended up in one of the only barracks that was there. And we went through the testing. And as I went through the testing, in these rooms where they just have a plywood table and, vertical so you can't cheat on somebody. Who's going to cheat, with this guy from Alabama? But anyway, you just took test after test after test, and it's like, it's just grueling. Finally finished all of that. They scored them, and then you went to see the personnel PFC or Spec 4 or whatever, and he asked you, what do you want to do in the Army? I looked at him and I went, I want to fly a fucking helicopter. He looked at my records, and he goes, go to building 325. I go to building 325, I leave. It's painted red, white, and blue. Okay, it's really nice and attractive. And you go in, and there's a couple of sergeants running around, and they got stripes up and down their arms, and they got medals. And he goes, hi, son, how you doing? You want a donut? There's donut, coffee, Coke. Have that. I'll be with you in a couple of minutes. That's the nicest thing anyone has said to me for 4 days. It's like, okay. So I took the test for flight school, and they also said, well, while you're here, take the OCS test too, Officer Candidate School. I passed both of them, so I could go to either school. I passed the warrant officer test high enough. There were two critical scores. One, if you passed it, you could apply to flight school after basic training and that. But if you got higher at this level, you got a direct appointment. I got the direct appointment. So it's like, okay, I'll do that. The deal was you have to become regular Army instead of a draftee. And you agree that if you graduate from flight school, which is about 9 months or so, you add an additional year onto your 2-year enlistment. So it would have been 3 years. But if you fail, or you didn't complete, you revert back to the 2 years, and all of that time counts. Okay, so flight school is 9 months long. You get a month off each year, so that's 11 months. Basic training is 2 months. That's 13 months, right? If I quit the day before I graduate, I'd only have 13. I'd have 11 months to go. At that time, tours in Vietnam were 12 months. There wouldn't be enough time. Flanagan says, I'm going to go do that. So there I go. Why did I pick helicopters? Probably about 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old. I was at the library, and I was, reading teenage race car books and stuff like that. And I picked up a book. It was called The Real Book About Helicopters. And in that book, it talked about how they float, how they fly, aerodynamics and stuff. And because of that book, I remembered, that you could auto-rotate if you lost the engines. And lots of things about helicopter flying. So when I took the test, there were a lot of questions that were like that I happened to remember. So I got that. I was held over at the reception station because at that time all of the candidates went through basic training at Fort Polk, Louisiana. So coming out of there, I had about 3 or 4 days waiting for the paperwork to catch up and all of that. So we had uniforms in the reception station, and all of the guys that came in with us had already gone, shipped out. So we were the old timers. So we had to march these guys without uniforms around there. I remember it was a cold, blowy night, and the wind was blowing so much they were afraid the tents were going to, fall down and burn up. So the sergeant that was in charge said, Flanagan, you and somebody else, I forget who the other kid was, says, you go down there and make sure the tents are secured. I come from Brooklyn. I've never spent a night outside. Maybe on a street corner with the guys, but never in a tent. And I'm the guy that's in charge to protect all of these people from it was crazy. We didn't lose any tents, thank God. And that was my piece at the reception station. Went to Fort Polk, got there early, so we got there like a week and a half before it started. So we were snowbirds, and they were converting some of the barracks from permanent party barracks to trainee barracks. So we had to knock out all of the niceties that they had in there, like closets and stuff. So they just worked our butts off. And completed that, and okay so far?
Yeah, we're great. So you did your time at Polk. Anything else memorable happen there?
Well, the cute thing, one of the things you have to learn there is, your general orders. There's 10 of them or something like that. And I was in formation, and the drill sergeant came up, Stevens. He comes up, and he asked me my third general order or whatever, and I stumbled around it. And he goes, Flanagan, do you need to know your general orders to be a helicopter pilot? I said, yes, drill sergeant. He looked at me. He goes, why? Because if I don't learn my general orders, I'll never get out of basic training. So he laughed a little bit and chuckled and went on through. But that was it, and took my 2 weeks vacation.
And where'd you go for flight school?
At that time, I went to Fort Walters, Texas for the primary. And you got about 110 hours there where you learned primary helicopter, how to maneuver the helicopter. And then you went into advanced where they took you out, and you went into confined areas and those kind of things. But still, a small little helicopter. It was a Hiller H-23, Hiller the Killer, three-place. Pilot sat in the center. The instructor pilot was on the left, and an empty seat on the right. No doors on it. Big bubble. First period, we went out, and the instructor had 3 students. So he took 2 students out to the stage field. The other one took the bus out. I was on the right side, just as the passenger, holding on to the door. And we go hovering out, and we start taking off. I hadn't told you that I'm afraid of heights, did I? Yeah, I don't like heights. My father used to repair the roof on a house on 40th Street, 3 stories up, and they'd put the tar down and stuff. I'd get up there and I'd look down. It's like, oh boy, I get some funny tingling feelings, and said, I don't really like this stuff. So anyway, we're going up there, and it's like, oh, okay, let's see what's gonna happen. And we got out to the stage field, and I guess I was okay. I came up. It was my turn next. Jumped in the seat and went up on the flight with the instructor, and he gives you one control at a time, so you get the feel for it. The throttle and the collective and the pedals and that. And you go, okay, that's, it's okay, it's not too bad. And then he says, okay, now in case, we'd lose an engine, this is what would happen. And he did auto rotation. And with that, it's, he bottoms the pitch, you know, and your stomach's up here and the helicopter's down here, and it's like, holy crap. You know, I don't like roller coasters either. I don't know if I told you that, but it was something, you know, and it was okay. We did all right. And that's how we got hit the flight line. First, you start with 30 days, 4 weeks of pre-flight, and pre-flight is just where they harass you. It's to weed out the guys that don't have the discipline or the guts to stay with it. And you have all kinds of school that you have to go through. So I got through that okay. That was not a problem. Still didn't like them screaming at me, though, but, you know, part of it.
This is the military. What you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. You know, at least these guys spoke better English. Yeah, you know, and they all weren't from Louisiana or someplace like that. So.
Did you go to Rucker after Walters?
After Walters, we go to Rucker, and in Rucker we go through instrument school in a little H-13, MASH helicopter, if you will. You're sitting in the cockpit, and the instructor's over there. They have a panel that closes up, and you put a hood on, so all you can see are the instruments, and that's how you learn how to fly. And it's funny because we had one time the wind was really, really blowing. I mean, it was blowing bad. So you do an instrument takeoff, and you're just watching the instruments that you're coming up, and you should be going like this. Well, if you got a really stiff wind coming up, we take off, and I mean, I'm under the hood. I don't know what the hell's happening. I'm doing it okay, and all of a sudden the instructor goes, "Okay, look out from under the hood." I looked out, and there's the pad we took off from, and we're up here. We're just blown back, and it was like, wow, that was interesting. Yeah, so yeah, we got through that okay. When I went to take my check ride, I wasn't a great instrument pilot, but I was okay to get through. Sort of borderline. So when they listed the check pilots you were going up with, they matched you and they told you who the guy was going to be. And when they put me up, my instructor looked and went, "Oh." He said, "Okay, fine. That's the worst instructor going. He's the hardest guy out there. You're going to bust the check ride. Don't worry about it, because I'll fly with you tomorrow, and we'll put you up again the next day. And the good news is you'll never have to fly with that son of a bitch again." Okay, cool. So I just relaxed. I went there. Guy seemed okay. We jumped in the helicopter and we went out. We flew our period and stuff, came back, sat down. I said, "Okay, looks good. 94. And I went, "Huh?" So I'm still in shock now, okay? I get back to the flight briefing room. My instructor's there. He says, "Okay, we'll schedule for tomorrow, and then we'll do the check ride." I said, "I think I passed." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." He said something like about a 94. He said, "What?" So he left. He walks out of the room, goes downstairs to the check pilots, the flight eval, and he comes back a couple of minutes later. He goes, "How the hell did you do that?" I went, "I don't know." So,
how'd this affect your master plan of quitting right before graduation?
well, I was still involved in that, but you know, they sort of suck you on in there, and it's a lot of fun flying these things. The Army's got a lot of great toys. You know, the hardest job in the Army is the Army wife, because she has to worry about day-to-day stuff. But to be a soldier, it's a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, they let you blow stuff up. I mean, they got great toys, and you do cool stuff. But anyway,
And I take it you're no longer afraid of heights.
I still don't like getting on ladders or anything else like that. There's a difference between being in control and not being in control, or knowing what's happening on there. But
fair.
you know, you're at the top of that ladder. You know, if it's coming down, you know, this is all of the stuff that's going to stop you. So,
Yeah.
but no, we went through that. Then we went through past that. Then we went to tactics and over to the Huey. You get in there, you start flying that, and that's an absolute Cadillac. It's a beautiful aircraft, and you get to be 75 feet long and 48 feet wide, and you get to know where stuff's at. So that was a lot of fun, you know.
Well, in the interest of time, I want to hop
Okay.
into Vietnam. Tell me about
Sure.
when you got your orders and how you got there.
Okay, got the orders at graduation. Most of the guys got their, a lot of the guys got assigned right to divisions, like the 1st Cav Division or the 1st Aviation Brigade, and they had patches sewn on their uniform as they're going across the stage. I was just sent over there, the replacement detachment. So I figured out all of these divisions, these combat units, they know how many they need. But, you know, there's a lot of small units in the Army that just fly like Bob Hope around and all of these. I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a VIP pilot. That's why I don't have a patch over here. No problem. So much so I believed it that I bought a little portable bar, you know, with the shot glass, and I carried that over with me because I knew that's what it was going to be. I also know I didn't want to go to the Cav, the 1st Cav, because you go there, you're going to die. I really didn't want to die. But when we get over into the repo depot in Vietnam, and those guys with patches left, and then they started posting up on a bulletin board, you know, new assignments and stuff. Larry Brown was in my flight school class. Larry and I had friends. He came back and he says, "Hey, voice, we're going to Cav." I'm like, bullshit, Larry. He goes, "No, we're going to the Cav." So I had to go up to the bulletin board. There it is. We're going to the 1st Cav. I knew I was going to die. I knew I was not going to make the tour. Let's get out of here as quickly as we can. We get up into An-Khe, the 1st Cav Division headquarters. We got all the pilots coming in, classmates of mine, because half of the class went. And the colonel there read off each one of the units, told us what they did, how many pilots he needed, and he explained them all. He explained. He got to the 1st and 9th. He said, "These are the tigers that are out there. They go out and they hunt and they kill. They started every one of the major battles of the 1st Cav Division. These guys are tough. They have a high turnover rate. I need 13 pilots in that one." And I thought, you know, if you're going to die in a unit that's famous, you know, do it right. So it comes time he goes, "Okay, 1st and the 9th, who wants to go to 1st and the 9th, raise your hand." You know, hands go up, more than 13. Goes, "If you're married, raise your other hand." He counted again. He goes, "Okay, 2 hands up, sit down. Okay, you guys, 1st and the 9th. And then he went through all of these other units. After he gets all of the units squared away, who wants to go where, he sits down at the table with the records of the 13 guys. He calls us up. One at a time, we sit down. He fills it out. "Hi, how are you?" Blah, 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 blah. Stands up, shook our hand. "God bless you." Got the next one. So I'm sort of at the end of this 13 line thing, and I'm going, all of these goddamn pilots here, he's going to do that. They're going to be here forever. Well, the last man comes through as 1st and the 9th. He stands up, says, "God bless you," and walks out with us. And then all of the Spec 4s come up, 227, 229, all of these other units. He only did that for the 1st and the 9th guys. And it was amazing. We went up to 1st and the 9th headquarters, and they assigned us to troops. And then we went through, supposed to go through some training for all Cav people were supposed to go through. We went through the first day and said, "This is bullshit." So we ended up going downtown for the next 4 days. We went up to join a troop at LC Two-Bits. The troop had just moved up to Duck Pho, but they were still coming back, bringing some of the aircraft back at night. So we got to meet, a bunch of the pilots in that. The LZ there was, the tents are set up in a cemetery. So the Vietnamese cemetery, they bury them sitting up. So there's like the head of a bullet coming up pretty big, and then it's a round circle, and it's flat, so it makes you really comfortable. I mean, you don't have any chairs and stuff. Sit on there, lay around, and And it was fun. And the gate was right there. We'd go out, and there was a little barber shop there, and the little kids were there, and they were selling ice and Cokes and stuff. So it was interesting. And then we got up to Duckville and flew up there. The pilot one of the pilots that flew me up there, got killed that afternoon. So it's a hell of a way to.
What was his name?
I'll get to it in a minute. Yeah, that's why I know what date that I went up there, because he's on the wall. So it was April 16th, I think it was. It'll come to me in just a minute. I'll check my book. I got it in there. But anyway, we went through there, and the old man.
April 16th of 67?
67. And he asked me, the troop commander says, okay, what do you want to fly? Because we had scouts, we had guns, we had lift. Just about everybody wanted to be scout pilots. Now, we got enough of them right now. Never say you got enough scouts. But anyway, you need so many guns and so many lift. I ended up in the lift, which flew the infantry guys around. We had our own infantry platoon that our tent backed up to, so we knew these guys. They're the same age as us, they're the same age. I just happen to be a pilot. I'm 20 years old. I'm a pilot. I'm an officer. These guys are Spec 4s, actually PFCs and stuff. But my plan was to go from lift when the scout opens up to go to scouts. Larry Brown did that, my friend, and he became a super scout. 5 of us from the class went to B Troop. At the end of the tour, only Larry and I completed the whole tour. Griff Bedworth got killed in an aircraft crash, weather-related. Dave Bressum went on the ground with the infantry to take pictures on his day off. And we were on an assault going in. We had ARA birds up. As we went in on assaults, 6th, the commander would mark the LZ with rockets. Up on top were 2 ARA birds with 96 rockets, 48 apiece on it. They would dump their loads, prep the LZ. We'd come in with a flight of 4 and would have 2 gunbirds on the side, probably a scout out playing around. And as we slowed down to get into the LZ, the guns dropped the nose and they prepped the LZ with stuff. Well, everything's starting off fine. 6 throws the rocket up there. ARA birds drop, start firing. This guy loses a tail rotor, and he goes into a spin like this, and he starts punching off rockets on the way down because he's holding on. And they cut the power, which it's supposed to do, and it went down, hit into the trees, bounced up, went down again. 3-6, the 2-bird, McAnally, he diverted and went over, and the guys dropped through some trees and humped up to get on top of the aircraft. Dave was with them. When they got on top of the aircraft, it blew up. Killed Warren Wheat, who was a brand new blue platoon leader. Doc Haney got hurt. Dave Bressum got wounded and backed out. So we put the troops in there, came back. We went by there. We dropped fire extinguishers out to them, came back, picked up our blues, and then put them in. The rest of the time was just going in there with chainsaws and stuff and trying to get the guys out. I mean, hovering down. The trees are high, and what they had cut down from the crash and the Pioneer gear was just big enough for the Huey to get into and down. And you come up to it, and I'm looking through the chin bubble where the blue is down there directing me. Now, there's wreckage underneath you that you can't see. So he's there, and he's given, there's standard, movements and stuff you're supposed to give, they learned in school. No, he's still like this going. and then he's going like this, he's going like that, and you're looking under the chin bubble, and you're following this guy, and it's like, and it's working, and you get it down to a hover, and he says hold it there, and you offload the stuff that they needed, and then you come back up. You know, you got the crew chief is in the back, he's hanging out of the aircraft, looking up to make sure as you're coming up, there's nobody flying over you. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, it's friggin' nuts. But you do it, and you've got that trust in one another that you just do it. So, where was I? Oh, the 5 guys going into the unit in there. Came time where there was room over in scouts and guns, and I just stayed with the lift. I liked it. I was flying with a guy by the name of Jim Pratt. Jim Pratt is the craziest guy in the world. He's got the weirdest sense of humor. He's from Boston. He tells a story about the foo bird. It's the dumbest story in the world, but he drags it out. We took off from Duck Foe to go over to play coup. So we had to fly out of Duck Foe. We were flying an hour and 15, hour 20 into Dog POL. Refuel. He started it on takeoff. He's telling the story the whole way. Into Anke. We stopped for lunch and everything. Got back in. Flew out another hour to play cool. Dropped the stuff. Refuel. Came back, and he finished it on short final, going back into Duck Foe. That's like 9 hours. And when he tells you the punchline, you want to kill him. But the guy is just amazing, and he and I developed a friendship that's wild. Even so, that when we got back, we were both assigned to Fort Walters, Texas. Bobby's aunt, who's one of the gun pilots, he was married. He had gotten down there a month earlier, 2 months earlier. He and his wife bought a mobile home, went into a brand new mobile home park being developed. And then I bought a trailer, a mobile home, went into the same park, 2 rows down. Jim bought a trailer, smaller trailer. He was in the space behind us and over, so Jim and I were together again. Then Andy Anderson bought one, and he was 1 more row down and over. Marilyn had one. We had B Troop right there, and it was nuts. And Jim is, because I got a brand new wife, Snooks, and she doesn't know how to cook. So she decided she was going to make a canned ham and invited Jim over, and she put it in the oven, and she kept looking at it and looking at it. I said, "Hon, is it done yet?" She says, "It doesn't look like it's done." Finally, after so many hours, she pulled it on out. Well, you know, when you're home, you know what a canned ham looks like when it's done? You know, it's got that nice glaze on it. It's got the pineapples. I guess she didn't know about that because all it was the ham that was in there, and it was just under this intense heat for hours. When it came out, it just crunched and dried. It was terrible. But Jim was okay. Now she'll tell you the story that the Kirby vacuum cleaner guy came in to his trailer. He didn't have any carpet, so he called me. I went over. I listened to the pitch. He said, "Oh, carpet? Yeah, we got carpet." So we came over. He said, "Come on over." Brings it over there. The guy comes in and throws dirt on the carpet. Snooks is looking, what's going on? He cleans it on up. I remember my oldest sister, she's 10 years older than me. They got a Kirby vacuum cleaner. They were thrilled by it. You know, he was an engineer for IBM, and this was a great engineering feat. So I bought this Kirby vacuum cleaner for my wife. She hated it. It's too damn heavy, pushing it. But it was cool because it had a paint sprayer attachment on it, and she even used it to paint the doghouse that she'd made for for the dog rehab. We still
What I'm
have.
looking for in my vacuum is a spray attachment.
Yeah, it's got a spray attachment on it. It's just an engine. The thing works great. We still got it. It still works fine. Now she uses it just to blow up, air mattresses and stuff when the grandkids come over. But that's all the way through Vietnam. With B Troop, we had scouts out there with guns. We had the lift. I don't know if you know about B Troop, but they'll tell you that this 1,200-man outfit, the squadron, accounted for more than 50% of the kills of the entire division. This, the 12,000, 14,000 man division. This little group did it. We fought every friggin' day.
So tell me, did you have any close calls during your time with them?
Oh yeah, we sure did. 27th of May, we were coming off some other missions, and we were coming back for lunch in Duck Pho, and they said, "Go check out this report of an antenna." We go in, we drop the blues off, we take off, and the blues come into contact. All shit's breaking loose. So we go over, we pick up the Ready Reaction Force, and we're back out there waiting. We're circling while they're trying to get the blues. They had one killed. Keegan, I think, died. Guzzy got gut shot. It was another guy. Another guy got hit. They were trying to bring him on back and get an area where we could land. Well, they got back into the same rice paddies we dropped them off in, and they're getting shot up from all around it. We got gunships out there flying. We're holding, and finally we're getting tight on fuel. And 3-5, the leader goes, "What's your fuel status?" And Jim and I are in the back, and we got a bird that it was written in pencil next to the fuel gauge. Engine quits at 125 pounds. So we're pretty bad. We're in the back of the thing. So, we reported what our fuel status was and said, we're really worried about this thing. And 3-5 says, "Okay, it's a 2-ship LZ. You move up and come in right behind me. 3-6, you go back and take 3-9 spot." So McAnally comes back. He takes our spot. We go up there. We go into the LZ. We drop these guys off. We're waiting in the LZ while they load the wounded and the dead into 3-5. Time to take off. We take off. And rounds going off all over the place on there. Jim and I go directly to POL. We climbed up a little bit to altitude in case we lost the engine. We could, have something. We got into the POL point, and we were pretty much bingo fuel. Well, anyway, McAnally comes in, then those guys take off, and he gets his ass shot down. So he has never forgiven us for taking his spot going in there. So that's pretty. But we went back in and all of this stuff. Our blues stayed on the ground overnight that night. He only did that twice the whole year because we got him out all of the time. But it was a lot of awards there. We had one of the infantry guys that's here at this reunion, Baskin. He got a Silver Star on it. One of the other gunships crashed and went in there. The 2 crew members left, and the pilot. It was upside down. The pilots were hanging in the seats there, and Baskin was one of the guys who went out there, cut the guy out. I mean, the aircraft's burning and stuff, dragged him on out. The guys in the lift ships, pilots, we all got distinguished flying crosses. I think Barry McAlpine got a Silver Star that day. I mean, a lot of stuff. 13 November '67, we were up at the Quezon Valley. This is up north of Chu Lai. And we were out doing hawk flights where a scout would go out with a gunbird and would have a squad of the blues up on top, and would look at the workers in the field, find military-age guys, that identify them, would swoop in, pick them up, take them to interrogation. Working great in the morning. Boy, we were picking up guys on there, the intelligence guys are saying these are, intelligence officers on this organization, blah blah blah. We were in one of the last ones there in the morning, and there were a bunch of people in the rice paddy field working, and as soon as they saw the 13 up on top, they started moving towards the village, the tree line. So I'm racing to come in, get down, got the blues out, and there was only like about 3 people left in the LZ with the blues, and then the tree line opened up. There's rounds kicking up in front of my chin bubble. There's mud all over the friggin' place, and picked up, went over, and got the blues on board while the gunship and the scout worked the tree line. So that's going okay. In the afternoon, the old man goes out, 6, George Burrow. He goes out. There's a guy he finds out there in a rice paddy going like this. George goes in after him. Oh, I'll go pick him up. Well, this guy was part of the NVA anti-aircraft unit that was there, and he was the decoy. George goes over, he gets shot down. Okay, he gets shot down. We go in there, we start putting blues in. Man, that place opens up. There's shit all over the place. We dropped the blues off, came on out, 3-5. 3-5, we went to refuel. 3-5 had fuel going in and fuel just coming out of the bottom of the aircraft. So he was down. He was out of it. Then we went around again and came in with the Ready Reaction Force, and this other one got shot down. Who was left was Tom Merriline was up there. He was flying 3-6, and I was 3-7. 3-9 was coming off a resupply, I think, and they came directly in with Bert Troley was flying that, and on the way into the LZ, he took rounds on it. Jimmy Chrysler was an RTO. He had radio telephone operator, and he got hit there, and he later died the next day at Chulai at the hospital. 2 of us went out, picked up some more reaction force, other infantry. They were in contact, and they moved them out of contact to be with us, and they called it at 2 other lift ships from another unit tag in behind us. We came in low level. You couldn't come in high. I mean, they shot down another ARA bird at altitude. We come in, made the turn, flared on top of George's place. We actually had a touchdown because they weren't our guys, and they got out of the aircraft, and Merriline takes off, and he starts climbing up that way, and I'm looking, and he's taking rounds, and Merriline goes over the platoon frequency we had, and he goes, 3-7, gotta get shot at, in that thing, I looked up there and I went, okay, you went up high, I'll go out low. As soon as the crew chief said you're up, I popped the tree line, back to the left, accelerate, and then that little son of a bitch went, took rounds through the windshield, up to the panel. I got plexiglass in my eyes, I can't see shit. I hand it over to my co-pilot, say, Jack, you got it? And he goes, I got it. And he starts climbing. No, we ain't going up. So I grabbed the controls rack, said, I got it. And I could barely see out the window and, the air coming in. Get hold of the crew chief, go, Art, what's it look like? And because I couldn't focus on the gauges. But the master caution panel was all lit up. And he goes, Mr. F, it looks bad. Put it down. I said, okay, give me direction. He goes, come left, straight ahead. I could see that there was an open rice paddy there. So we start coming in, and he starts firing. My crew chief really never fired before, but this time he did. And I hear, as we're coming on in, I hear this, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. What the fuck is going on? I turn around. Well, with the machine gun, he wore glasses. With the machine gun, the glasses were going down. Da 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 da, and they go like this, up, and then da 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 da, up, and that's what was happening. So I called the Mayday, and I called 3-6. I said 367. I'm going down. He said, Roger, out. And then I got on the horn and said, you know, Mayday, we're going in, and the guy behind me said, I'm following you down there. So we get into the rice paddy, shut the engine down. Crew chief got my door open, got me out, threw me around the front of the aircraft. As I'm coming around the front of the aircraft, I look, there's my co-pilot door sitting in a rice paddy. Going, what the fuck? I didn't hit hard. What's it doing there? Well, the aircraft's over here. When it jumped up, the guy took off. I say, everybody okay? I thanked the crew up there. And I looked at Jack, and Jack goes, I'm glad I got shot down today. So what are you talking about? And he goes, you know, in flight school, you're sitting there the whole time, and here's this handle, and it's yellow and black, and it's wired, you know? And he said, I got a chance to pull it today. It was the jettison for the door. So you're sitting there, I mean, this is nuts. This is absolutely nuts, but this shit happens like that. So yeah, we had some tight times. Yeah, we had that. We were up at Way, Tet 68, when everything blew up. We had just moved up from July up to Camp Evans. They put us outside the wire. Evans hadn't been hit 2 years. We got there the next day. They started rocketing us. We were outside the wire.
Let's set the stage on this, because this is a really big moment. Where is Camp Evans? What's the environment like?
Camp Evans is about 20 clicks north of Way. Way Fubai had the Citadel there, major action on it. Marines to the south, 101st had just come in, and they were at Camp Eagle, which is just south of it. So we're up north. We were getting ready to go into the Ashau over there. We had a Charlie troop was up at Crane Tree. So all of our equipment was in the LSTs and barges in the Perfume River right there at the Citadel. So we don't have anything with us but what we bought up the week before. We wake up one morning and they sent the first light team out with the report that Way's been taken, and they went down there and bigger than shit it had. There was an NVA flag flying on top. The fight started. We started bringing our blues down to a Vietnamese artillery compound, PK-17, which was real close to the north side of the Citadel, and it was mainly for crew recovery in case they got shot down. Our aircraft were out there flying around. We had one of our gunships get shot down. In the meantime, Tom Maryline, the guy was going, I gotta get you out of that. We called him Wonder Warthog. The guy was absolutely insane. He knew he was invincible. He's flying with somebody from Squadron that day in a Huey, and he's coming back, and he flies over where he sees our crashed gunship, and there's two groups of people, bad guys here, and he shoots an approach. I mean, the weather was shitty. I mean, the weather's only like 200 feet or something. He shoots the approach into one of them, and the other set killed the pilot and the gunner over there. But he shot the approach to this guy, and those guys scrambled. So he got Billy Babcock out, and the other guy, the crew chief or whatever, got him in there and got them out, and picked up the remains, and came out. But that's when the fun started. I mean, it was crazy. And then we'd keep at least one ship at PK-17, and then another ship would relieve and come out. So we were sitting there, and the other ship was coming in. Mike Covey was coming in to relieve, and all of a sudden we started getting incoming mortar fire and rocket fire. And I'm just sitting in the back of the aircraft. You got a bunch of blues around who were shooting the shit like we always did. And a round landed just beyond it, and shrapnel and stuff coming through. I took some in my head. Guys took it in their legs and stuff. We get into a revetment or a ditch, a culvert, and the rounds were still coming in. And I said, let's get the hell out of here. I didn't trust the... So I said, let's go. And Jack Kraft, my co-pilot, I don't know where the hell he was, but we had a scout pilot there that we had picked up. He'd been shot down. We had him there, so I put him in the other seat and got everybody on board. I said, we get out of here. And I pulled pitch and went into back up at Evans on there. Went to the aid station. Actually landed at the VIP pad there, the admin pad, because medevac pads were full. I jumped out and started grabbing 3/4 tons, just over, directing traffic, getting the guys in there, and that went over. And I got treated. That was just minor stuff on there, and it was fun because I gave my tourniquet back to bandage some of the guys on the way out. But it was funny coming back. We were coming up, and call Evans Tower, and say, Evan, Blue 37, I'm en route to medevac. I got wounded on board. And he said, Blue 37, be advised, we got a C-130 on final. And it's like, I'm not going to wait. He said, my guys. So I go, Evans Tower, this is Blue 37 transmitting in the blind. I can't hear you. You're coming in too bad. I'm at this position. I'm coming in. Clear the traffic. C-130 on final. Make a go around. So, I got him out of the way. I was able to get him in, but it was wild, I think. The weather was terrible there. And then they were built up so much. Afterway, Larry Brown was out to the west, and he found a bunch of NVA up there, and he found a guy that looked like he was Russian. He was too big to be Vietnamese. So they called, since there was only Larry and I left in the class, whenever Larry was out on a mission, I sat in operations. In case something was going on, we were going to go get Larry, because they can't get both of us. And so they said, good, launch a blue flight. So I got the squad, got in, went out there. It's in a bowl of mountains, and the LZ, if you call it that, is right at the base of it. There's no place to go. If we lost an engine, no place to go. If we were down in there, nobody's going to be able to get in. I land there. The Blues take off up a trail here. I look forward, and under the canopy, you can see this looked like a highway, for cripe's sake. So wide, well used in that. Till the crew chief, Dale was my crew chief. Hey Dale, this looks bad. We may have to stay here. He said, I know, Mr. F. And he had a belt of ammo over his arm, and he was ready to get out. Well, as soon as the guys get up the trail a little bit, you hear gunfire up there. Then you hear an explosion over here. Larry said the Vietnamese hand grenade went through the cabin and blew up. I don't think so. I think it went under the ship, but it blew up over there. They brought down a weapon. This this gun, had to be 5 feet long or whatever it was. Yeah, I'm not a military guy, really. So I report to 6. 6, Roger, I get this. They just brought the weapon in. He goes, what kind of weapon? I said, I don't know. It's the biggest damn army gun I ever saw. And then they carried this guy down. They thought it was Chinese. And put him on the aircraft and we came out. But it was, I mean, it was tight on there. We got him back there. The intelligence guys came out and said, no, he's just a northern Vietnamese guy from the border, and he was just big, that's all. So we had that one. It's nuts. There's some more. I put all of those stories in a book.
Entitled?
Born in Brooklyn, raised in the Cav. The genesis of it is the Vietnam helicopter pilots get together with the Helicopter Pilots Association every year. Luckily, over the years, just about everybody that I flew with in Vietnam on the first tour has attended. And when you get together, you tell the same family stories, just like, your family does. But in '98, I realized that these guys are getting old. And they started mixing stuff up. And they were forgetting stuff. And I said, when I get old, I don't want to be someplace and go, that reminds me of the time I was in Vietnam and I don't know what the hell happened. So I decided I was going to sit down and write those war stories. So for the next year and a half, I'd go up to the computer room with a little bourbon, a little Budweiser sometimes, and sometimes a little more. And you start, well, here we were at Duck Foe and his B Troop and blah, 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 and keep going. And then the next night or 2 nights later, go up, here was another little, ditty or what. And I got tired of explaining what the B Troop looked like in the organization every time you start telling a story for the person to understand. So I put that first. I said, well, I'll organize this a little bit so I wouldn't have to tell that story. And I finally got to the point, I said, well, let me see if I can get it in some logical order, chronological kind of thing. So for my best of memories and stuff, and I put this stuff together, and I had it run off at Staples, and I sent a copy of it to my brother, who's 12 years older than me, I guess, in New York. And he said, Johnny, you got a book there. He read it, my nephew and my sister-in-law. So I said, okay. Now, I don't like to be disappointed, and I don't like rejection. And I know that this book isn't Times bestseller quality. So I said, there's got to be a way to do this thing. And I didn't want to have 10,000 copies in my garage like most people do, and vanity publishers. I found this place, Ex Libris, that does printing on demand. When you want the book, you order the book, they print it, and they send it to you. It's pretty cool. So I spent the next 3 months, actually 2 months, going through and adjusting all of the spaces so I knew what it was going to look like. So I wanted the front, indent, so I go space, 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 space. And then it come down, boom, 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 space, 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 and all the way through. And I got it all completed, and I go up online to find out how to submit this thing. And it says, send an unformatted copy of your manuscript. So guess what I did for the next month and a half? Delete, 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 delete. Had to go through all of that stuff. I sent it on in, sent some pictures in, it goes back and forth. My brother had come down with colon cancer, and it was getting close to the end, and I wanted to get it published and get it out. And I probably could have used 3 more cycles of it, but I didn't. I said, let's do it. And I pulled the trigger on it. I did give him a copy of the final manuscript that I had submitted with a draft of the cover, and got that to him. But he died before. He died a week before the final edition came out. But I got the book. I got a soft cover. I got a soft cover of that. The person on the front here under this superficial layer of fat lies that hero. And yeah, I am standing in front of my helicopter with a cigarette that's lit, and that's, a safety thing. No smoking within 500 feet and drinking within 24 hours, or smoking within 24 hours and drinking within 24 feet. I don't know what it is.
Hey, you're just twice the soldier you used to be.
That exactly. I like that one. I'm going to remember that. But I got that for $1,500. I got that and a hardcover book, and I went to the next VHPA reunion, and the book had been published, and I'm walking in to see the guys. Now, I wasn't smart enough to realize that you don't use real people's names in books. I did. So I'm coming in here, and the Jim Pratt's there, the Mike Covey's there, Marieline's there. It's like, oh boy, they're gonna be rough on my ass. I walked in, it was nothing. There was no problem at all. But over the next 3 or 4 days of the reunion, every one of them came up to me and thanked me for writing the book. Jim Pratt says, hey, I'm going to publish a book too. It's really great, Jim. It's going to be great. He goes, yeah, it's going to be real small. It's going to say, you open up the book, chapter 1, I flew with John. And it's like, okay, Jim, I got you. But it's been in print since 2001. And printing on demand, it's still there. It sold. I made money on it. I mean, real early, because I didn't invest any. Like $1,500. I mean, that's not many books at all to sell.
Well, let me ask you about when in the writing process, what did you find difficult about writing the book?
I guess being fair, making sure you don't hurt anybody. Try to be accurate, because memory fails. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and what you know may not be true. So right at the beginning of the book, I mean, the first page, it's like, hey, this is what I remember what it looked like. It may be like General Gordy Sullivan once said. He was the chief of staff of the Army. He says, I have ever increasingly clear pictures of events that may never have happened. And it's like, so based on that, it's like, this is mine. And I tell folks that if you read it and there's something that you remember differently, write it down on a piece of paper, put it in there. My book becomes your book. My story is your story. It's okay. And I have found that I had forgotten some people, like Warren Wheat, the Blue Platoon leader that got killed when an ARA bird blew up. I didn't know his name. I'd forgotten his name. He was only with us for a couple of weeks. But Billy Ray Johnson reminded me what the guy's name was. And then Barry McAlpine telling me the blues names and stuff. So still on my to-do list is probably revise it with the stuff that I know. But interestingly, soldiers like it. Soldiers' families like it.
Because I haven't read it, but I'm sure you speak in their voice.
Yeah, and it's not political. You won't learn anything political about this. That's what it ain't what it's about.
No one wants to read
No.
political.
This is the only book in Vietnam, I'm sure, that has a chapter entitled Shitters and Pisses, because that's important when you're out there, when you can carry your own shitter, your two-holer, to the next place. That's important. But the people that have read it that weren't in the air cav, weren't in the first cav, weren't at this time, they come back and they've sent me emails telling me how great it is. And it's like, okay.
A couple other questions.
Okay.
What do you want people to remember about Vietnam based on your experiences of the day?
We won. We kicked ass. And I read an article it came on Facebook, but it was an article from a real live publication where this guy did the research, and he says that our commitment in Vietnam for that amount of time gave the United States and the free world the opportunity to build build up their value and credibility with the rest of the countries in the area, in Cambodia, in Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and because of that, because of what we invested up here and were able to invest here, the Soviet Union had to change their economy to try to beat us. And what they did is they destroyed their own economy. And that's what caused them to fail. So the key, his premise, was that by investing in Vietnam and fighting that, we took down a wall. I don't know if you read that, if you've seen that before. And it was wow, that's really amazing. You know? So, yeah, so that's it. And you know, the guys, you don't have to be a LERP or a Force Recon guy or a hero helicopter pilot or a jet pilot to be proud of your service. You know,
Now, is there any song that you heard today would take you back into a helicopter over Southeast Asia?
well, we got to get out of this place, of course, is one of the ones that's there. But yeah, I'm really not into a music kind of a thing. I mean, it's on. It's just, but that's probably, you know, part of it. You know, Pratt and I used to, you know, you fly in a helicopter, you got an intercom where everybody's talking about it inside the aircraft. You've got UHF radio where it's all of the air-to-air, people talking back and forth. You got Fox Mike FM where you're talking to the people on the ground or listening to what's happening on the ground. You may have a VHF like we had, just the platoon talking back and forth on a private channel that, you know, we just dialed up and nobody else was there. We used it. And we had AFVN radio, nav radio. So you got all of that stuff on there. So we'd be going into an LZ, and we'd have AFVN radio on. We'd be listening to it until it got a little shaky. Then you just reach up and you click it off for a while.
It's maybe not a song, but if you heard that radio hiss.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, you hear it. We went to Vietnam on vacation, 2002.
Where'd you go?
Vietnam. My wife and I, and Barry McAlpine, his wife, and one of his daughters, 21-year-old.
Oh, you were on that trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, and it was so much fun, you know. But I had a couple of flashbacks, but it was flashbacks from my second tour. I went back over. I was instructor after Vietnam. I got back and we got married. Got married within 2 weeks of getting back. She planned the whole thing while I was gone. We went to Walters. I was instructor pilot. Found out at happy hour that they were opening up airplane school to warrant officers. And all you had to do is spend another year in Vietnam flying fixed wing. I was in a cab, fixed wing, piece of cake. So I got selected for it. I also got selected for an advanced aircraft. And oh, by the way, the Army Security Agency. So I was over there flying the classified mission. And we were based out in the Trang. The company was. I was at a forward platoon and on K. But as we were flying in on vacation to Nha Trang, we entered the traffic, and everything was just so familiar and so unchanged, really. And I got a flashback of a time I was coming back off a mission, and the tower was talking to the maintenance officer who was doing a flyby by the tower because he was getting bad indications on the gear. And I came up and I said, let me check it. So I came up and I flew formation on him to check the gear. And as I was checking the gear, I noticed he had his nav lights on in the daytime. And I said, turn your nav lights off. Turn them off. Okay, got it. Gear's down. Because when you have your nav lights on and you drop the gear, all of those lights on the thing, they dim. So this way it's not a shock. But I got a flashback of it. And I had thought about that 40 years, but it was there.
But sensory.
Yeah, it just, it just clicks. The other thing was, when we were in Pleiku, stayed at a one-star hotel that the Snooks will never forget. But we took a trip over to Ankei, and on the way back we stopped by a mountain yard village, and the village chief there let us into his hut so you could see how the chief lives. Oh yeah, the folks on the streets of L.A. are probably better off than he is on there. But they walked us down to the burial ground of the village, and that's where they have all of their feasts and carnivals and parties for the village, because they include the ancestors in there. So we're down there, we listen to it, and it's okay. We hear the stories about how the babies are buried with the mothers if it's at childbirth and stuff, and it's getting dark, and we're walking up the trail to get back up to the van, and I got some really bad feelings, just down in the animal level of the body. It's like, I got to get out of this fucking place. It was, but it was exciting, and that's what Ann wanted to see. All of the other stuff that we went into Saigon. We took the hydrofoil boat over to Vung Tau. We had a van meet us there and drive us back. They said, we got to get back because we're going to go visit the liquor factory. I said, oh, this is cool. A liquor factory. I didn't know had a liquor factory. Well, we get over there to this place. It's not a liquor factory. It's a lacquer factory. And they got all of this artwork there. It was funny than hell. You got the folks doing eggshell art, where they take the eggshells and they put it on these boards and they color them, and you got these beautiful pictures, but it's all eggshells. I mean, it's incredible. But I thought it was a liquor factory. So then we went from there up to Pleiku. We spent 2 days at Pleiku. We went up to an orphanage and saw the folks up there. And I recall up there because we spent a night up there, Pratt and I, on our tour. We went over to Ankei. We saw, the Hong Kong mountain. We went up the trail to where you could get into the old base, but it was like, no, we don't want to go down there. We'd gone over to a national heritage site over there with, there's only 6 of us in the audience, and they've got 20 people, up there doing all of this dancing and telling the stories and stuff. And then we went back and we went up to Da Nang, Marble Mountain, and we actually stayed in Hoi An, the ancient city of Hoi An. That was a lot of fun. This is a 5-star beach resort up there. I mean, it's just, and there I had a flashback. They parked us where the buses park and where they have a computer center, if you will, where you get on the internet, and it's enclosed, with a wall like most of them are. And I was waiting for somebody, and I walked out, and the gate was there, and across from the gate, they had the little bicycles under a shed, and I fat, dumb, and happy walk. I looked at that, and I went, that reminds me of Vietnam. I'm going, you fool, you're in Vietnam. But it was just, it was nuts. I mean, why? What happens to your mind where you just lose where you are, and this thing, reality, is there, and you go, that reminds me of where I am. Huh? It's like, it's nuts. It's crazy.
As a frequent traveler, I've been there, I've done that.
Yeah, okay. And it's...
when I find out, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Well, I want to give you the opportunity to just have a final statement, closing words of advice for anybody who's watching this in the future. Family, friends, just anybody?
That's what I remember. That's the way it was. I got it in the book. I'm not trying to sell you the book. It's just that I spent a lot of time on there, and there are a lot of good stories there, a lot of good mentions of good people doing great things for us.
It's a beautiful thing to have these stories in your voice, in your own words. So I'm thankful for you coming by, sharing your stories with me. It's an honor and a pleasure. But more importantly, thank you so much for your service, John.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I really do, Martin.